welcome into another edition of the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast, brought to you as always by the GSMC Sports Network. Happy Friday to you all. Hopefully you've enjoyed this week of shows, but we have a banger to conclude the week here, starting off by previewing our two NFL Championship games, starting off in the NFC with the Eagles and Commanders, then switching it up to the AFC, talking about Chiefs Bills. Then I'm going to be looking at some quarterbacking situations in college football's hottest conferences, two of them, the SEC and the ACC. I think that these two conferences are returning the most talent at the quarterback position next year and could be primed for solid teams making solid CFP runs. And then finally, we conclude today's show with a Bundesliga preview. RB Leipzig taking on Bayer Leverkusen, the first team that Bayer Leverkusen lost to this year in the Bundesliga after their unbeaten run to the Meisterschale this season. Can Bayer Leverkusen run Bayern close, put the pressure on them, or will RB Leipzig find their footing in that game? But before we get into any of that fun stuff, I do want to remind you all to like, follow, and subscribe to the show on the network if you haven't done so already and want to keep up to date with all of our content. Consider making yourselves available to, as always, the Super Chat, Super Thanks, and Super Stickers features here on my screen and on YouTube. They're a great way, as always, to get your opinions, feedback, input out there for me to read them and react to them as well. You can do it through our website, gsmcpodcast.net, as well too. You can also leave any tips or donations, which are genuinely appreciated by all concerned here at the network and just makes our shows that much better. But without further ado, let's jump right into our NFC Championship Game preview. Eagles taking on their NFC East rival Commanders at home at Lincoln Financial Field. It should be a raucous environment, two of the NFC's best. But I think that this game has more storylines surrounding it than the Chiefs-Bills game, surprisingly. Because speaking about the Commanders is always incredible to behold, considering the trajectory of their season, right? They implemented an entirely new regime organizationally. They got rid of Dan Schneider. They brought in GM Adam Peters. They brought in head coach Dan Quinn. He brought in offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. And a lot of pieces had to be fitted into this puzzle. So what do? With the second overall pick, they draft Jaden Daniels. He quickly becomes perhaps the best rookie quarterback of all time in the regular season, set records for completion percentage and rushing yards, and now finds himself on the doorstep of being the first ever rookie quarterback to star in a Super Bowl. And the only team in his path is a team in his division that he's all too familiar with in their two games this season, the Philadelphia Eagles. And one man matters more to this game than perhaps any other, and that is Saquon Barkley. Now more than ever, I feel like the Eagles are going to be needing Saquon in this game because this is eerily similar to these teams' second meeting of the regular season when Jalen Hurts went down with an injury, because now Jalen Hurts might be playing through an injury or he may not play entirely, concerning severity of this injury, and really waiting to hear what's going on with it, because now that the Commanders are coming in with all this fire, beating the number one seed Detroit Lions, a 15-win team, I feel like the momentum is slowly going towards their side. But because of Saquon Barkley, you can never doubt this Philadelphia Eagles team, even with a hobbled quarterback. And Jalen Hurts has been here before. He's been in this position, getting this team to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But ultimately, it's going to be a lot harder. But let's get into the details of this matchup, the impact certain players can be, and the big questions that both teams have to answer. Let's start with the Commanders, because the Commanders also have their fair share of injury worries, especially at the interior of their offensive line. Obviously, right guard Sam Cosmi last week went down with an injury, graded as one of the best interior offensive linemen this year by PFF, replaced by Trent Scott, who had only logged 45 snaps at the position prior to that injury. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays into the Eagles' defensive game plan, what they failed to succeed with in their second meeting this season. That brings me to my first question that the Washington Commanders have to answer. Can Daniels continue to beat the blitz? Because the Eagles blitzed him at the second highest rate he had been blitzed all regular season. 35.6% of his dropbacks, they blitzed him, daring him to make the quote-unquote rookie mistake. But he, against that Eagles blitz, had 10 complete passes on 15 attempts for 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions, and had the third highest passer rating of anyone blitzed that highly, throwing at least 15 times in those situations. So he is prepared for whatever the Eagles throw at him, but now he's San Cosme. And I feel like the Eagles are going to want to win this game defensively, because that's where they have all the juice. Yes, Saquon can be the difference maker, and we'll talk about Washington defensively. But I do think that the aim for Philly is to gain better field position than Washington, so that Jalen Hurts is not going to be asked to do too much because of that injury and how hobbled he could be. So I feel like if the Eagles take the initiative, if the Eagles dominate the trenches and really figure out the interior of that Washington offensive line, it could be a much tougher day for Jaden Daniels than the last time out here. And then on the other side of things, looking at the Washington defense, their run defense was one of the worst in the entire NFL, and it's only gotten worse in the postseason. I believe they were the fourth worst in terms of the regular season, giving up 137.5 rush yards per game. Now they're giving up 150. And the way they let Jahmyr Gibbs run all over them should have Saquon chomping at the bit to get out this defense. And he's going to have to be the bell cow in this game because of what could be a very hobbled Jalen Hurts. So that's one of the questions I feel like the Commanders need an answer. Can the big boys up front, the Deron Paynes, the Jonathan Allens of the world, get going so that this secondary can also find confidence and rhythm in their game, which much like they did against Detroit? Because the way I see it, Jared Goff and Jalen Hurts are semi-similar. It's just that Jalen Hurts has the dual threat ability to escape situations that Jared Goff can't, and he's asked to do a little bit less than a guy like Jared Goff in this offense. Because of that dual threat ability, I put him just above Jared Goff when it comes to the NFC in terms of athleticism and the ways he can carry a team, but now he's hobbled. So by taking away a threat that Washington has already looked good against, that means that this entire defense's focus is concerned with stopping the run. Not just the guys up front, but the guys on the back end as well. And the way they do it is by forcing them into the second and long, third and long situations and forcing Jalen Hurts to win with his arm, which he might not be ready to do. So, like I say, Saquon will determine this game. The way he goes, the way Philly's offense will go, and if this Washington run D cannot keep up, then it spells danger for them. But then again, in a shootout, why wouldn't you favor the Washington Commanders, a team that put up 45 points on an albeit depleted Lions defense, but still a Lions defense that a lot of people weren't worried about coming into the postseason just because, well, they were going to play either the Bucs or Commanders, and even though they were high-powered offenses, their own offense could simply outscore them. So the fact that the Commanders put up 45 points against the number one seed, no matter how banged up they were defensively, really speaks volumes. But then again, this defense is different from the Lions defense. This is statistically perhaps the best defense in the NFL this season, and they've only gotten better. They've only kept the Eagles in these past two games. It could have been different had either the Packers or Rams offenses been a little bit more competent But ultimately, that's the reason why they are here. Saquon Barkley, an opponent defense built through the interior and strong enough in the secondary to really match up very well against this Washington team. But when looking at this Washington team and thinking about my prediction, I can't get past the fact that no matter what any team has thrown at Jaden Daniels, he has simply risen to the occasion. I don't know what the Eagles' defensive game plan is going to look like. Whether they go man-to-man, dare Jaden Daniels to make the rookie mistake, dare him to turn the ball over, which is something that both of these teams have been sterling in terms of not doing this postseason, then potentially the Eagles can win this game. But as the week has gone on, as I've heard about the Commanders' mentality, as I think about this team, I think about how they've rebuilt to this point, how they've gotten to this point with a rookie quarterback, I have to say the Commanders, in my opinion, are the favorites in this one. And I feel like they're going to come out and say, hey, we're down a couple important guys. Our run defense is not the best. We might not slow down Saquon Barkley, but we know that our guy, JD5, is good enough to get us to the Super Bowl. So we're going to go out there, go mano-a-mano, toe-to-toe with you, and we'll see who's the better NFC East team. Because the Washington Commanders are definitely playing it like it. So without further ado, my pick for this game is Commanders by a touchdown, 38-31. I think it's going to be an electric game, and I think the Eagles will be buoyed by that home atmosphere. I think they'll be uplifted by Saquon for large portions of this game. He'll get them out of trouble, but I cannot doubt the young man wearing number 5 on the Washington Commanders anymore. And I do think he has the talent and the players and the coaching necessary to be the first rookie quarterback to start in a Super Bowl. But let me know what you guys think about this game. It's going to be a good one. But coming up next, we transition over to the AFC, talking about a big rivalry in the AFC, specifically in these championship games. It's going to be Chiefs-Bills at Arrowhead. What a mouth-watering affair that's going to be. We'll be right back to talk about it.